This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From Not a Pipe Publishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
Today's secret word is Thailand.
If I take my time.
Welcome, everyone. Today's guest is Gwen Tolios. Gwen is an ace writer from Chicago who's constantly trying to get her cat to cuddle. Well, she does write romance novels. Most of her publications are speculative short stories. Her story, Isolation Training, is part of the Written with Pride anthology. Fantastic story. Everybody should check that one out. Welcome, Gwen. How's it going?
Going well. Yourself, Ben?
Not bad. Everybody who watches the show knows we always dress up in these amazing costumes for the show, but then we have to describe them for the folks who are listening on the podcast. So, Gwen, tell everybody what you chose to wear today.
So I chose to wear my mermaid costume. I love costumes, so I love mermaids. So this, not quite Ariel style. So it's got the very orange seashell bra, full length tail. You can't see it, but it's like tulle on the bottom. Whenever I wear this out in public, I actually have like a helper who like picks it all up for me.
Yeah.
And to complete the look, since I'm also on TikTok, I have my book talk crown.
Yes, nice. I wanted to go with something, if you are a mermaid at heart, I think I'm probably a werewolf at heart, with all the anxiety and everything that comes with, not knowing, when I'm going to lose it. So I went with this werewolf costume, which is unwise in the heat. Like I am
You look
just going,
like so hot right now.
Yeah, it's really warm. But for the sake of the show, for the sake of the listeners, I am fully wolfed out for this show. So what has been this is a show about procrastination. What has been something that has been helping you procrastinate in this last week?
So I tend to go in and out of fandoms a lot, and so my current obsession is the old Yu-Gi-Oh anime. It's like 20 years old at this point, but I've like rediscovered it lately, and I'm just very obsessive about it right now. So
I remember watching it way back when, like I watched it when it was on TV.
Right, same.
Yes.
But the creator had died roughly a year ago, actually, while trying to rescue someone who was drowning.
Oh, wow.
So there was kind of like this resurgence on social media, and I was like, do you know what? I should like go back and watch it. And I didn't realize that there was like an extra 4 seasons. I only remember the first season from when I was a kid. So there's a lot of material for me to go through.
Was it a manga and then, or was it toy line and then cartoon? How did that?
So it was actually originally the manga, and then turned into a anime here. And there's definitely parts of the anime that are just not in the manga at all. Eventually, because I'm obsessive, once I finish watching the show, I actually want to go back and read the translation of the manga.
Yeah, that and so are you into anime in general, like all
So you know what, I used to be, like when I was in high school, that was my jam. As I've gotten older, less so. Part of it was just my time disappeared. Like once you hit college, there's other things that are on your plate, and now it's an access thing. I don't want to pay more money for Crunchyroll, but if it's on Netflix, then I might do it. Yu-Gi-Oh is actually on Hulu, so it makes it easy to get.
Well, and there has been such an explosion in the form in terms of the quantity. It feels like, to me anyway, maybe that's just more breakthrough in the United States, but there are so many that I'm like, I don't know where to even catch up. Like I've been watching, my son and I have been watching Demon Slayer, and that one is fun. I very much have that kind of cultural remove where I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm qualified to evaluate if this particular response is cheesy or if is this response entirely culturally appropriate. And I'm just thinking that was a cheesy moment because it's me. Like there are these characters who wear the masks with the really long nose, the sensei character, and I'm like, I cannot take him seriously. He looks like one of the Marx Brothers, like cartoonified.
No, totally fair. Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of hidden things just within anime where it might just be just like when you talk about science fiction or fantasy, there's certain things in the genre. There's certain things that also just fall into an anime genre that we might think is cheesy, but is actually just like a staple.
Yeah, or it could be a trope, or it could be a reference that I don't get.
Yes.
And so I'm like, oh, is this something that I would understand if I knew this other legend or whatever that it's making reference to? So yeah, I can dabble in it, but I'm like, I would have to get really deep into this to get all that.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about in this week's news? What has been keeping you from your writing?
So everything that's happening with the new Threads app. So as an author, like I'm always interested in social media. That's how I'm doing my own promotions, but my day job is actually also in marketing. So it kind of hit that both sides of things. What's going on with it? Do we want to recommend it to clients and so on? So it's definitely been on my mind a lot the past few days.
I have been more than dabbling on Threads, which means I'm spending my time reading still Twitter and scrolling through Instagram and reluctantly occasionally going to Facebook. But then if I'm going to post anything, I'm copying and pasting to all three. Like it's going to everywhere, and I'm like, this feels laborious. I would love it if Threads. One of the things they've talked about doing is being able to import Mastodon from and include that, so you post on Mastodon and it shows up on your Threads. And I'm like, I'm hopeful that we can create a clearinghouse, and yet Mastodon can still have the ability to say, sorry, Mark Zuckerberg, you can't manipulate Mastodon. So we'll see if there's some consolidation there as they. But yeah, it's been wild.
Do you actually know the website, If This Then That?
No.
So If This Then That is what you see in coding languages, but there's a website for it. So IFTTT. And what they do is they have these small little applets where they will automate that sharing of content across multiple social media channels. So every time I post a photo on Instagram, it used to automatically share on Twitter. It doesn't anymore, but it will share to Facebook if I wanted it to. It shares to Tumblr. And it won't like just share a link to the Instagram post. I'll actually like share the actual image.
Oh, does it cost anything?
So they've recently changed, so you can only have 2 connections for free, and then you do have to have a paid subscription. It used to be like unlimited for free, which is great. But I'm sure there's other services that do the same thing.
Yeah, I used to use what was it called? Social Oomph, which was very similar. But it was only for a couple things, and it cost, and it didn't have a good mobile app. And so I was like, well, this is great when I'm posting for the, not a paid publishing. When I'm posting for the company, I can post to multiple, but I would have had to pay, and it didn't do. Was it maybe the problem was it didn't do video? I think it was it was kind of limited, and so it was like, oh no, I want to be able to interact in this way that is drawing attention to our authors, to their books, and this is actually limiting. It's easier to copy and paste everything, especially when we've got a launch. We just launched Ashfall by MK.
Oh yeah, I saw those posts.
Yeah, it's really good, and so I'm like, I need to be letting readers know, check out this book, it's so good. But it is work. It's a lot of work. Yeah,
very much so.
Is it nice that you have? It's got to be wonderful that you've got that expertise from your job, but does it mean that it is extra exhausting when you're like, I've been doing marketing all day for my day job, and now I'm home and I'm doing it as a writer for myself? Like, that sounds like
yes and no. So I work for a really big agency, so we kind of have specialized roles. My role is specialized in the analytics, so I do a lot of the evaluation of, was this a good spend, did we spend our money correctly? What was the impact of this? So I'm not actually involved in the tactics. Like, where should we be putting media? What type of media should we be creating? So I don't have that kind of conflict when trying to do it for myself. It means I don't have skill sets that I could use for both, but I'm able to like look at, if I'm hosting a variety of media, I can then evaluate, okay, this was good, this was not, but I don't have any help in like this will be good. This is what I should be doing. I'm
But
learning just like the rest of us.
Information on the back end is incredibly valuable to be able to go, I know what did work. Maybe it's, a 3-day-old piece of data, but that's still a lot better than the rest of us. I spend a lot of time looking at the analytics for like our ads, what actually worked. And it's often because it's the company's money and it's very limited. It's an exercise in frustration to go, yeah, we spent more than we made on that one. Shoot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like I've only just got into my own paid ads versus just like maybe boosting a social post occasionally. Yeah. And I realized like doing paid ads on Amazon, it was really hard for me to make a profit. So I changed and I'm not doing them as conversion campaigns. I'm doing awareness campaigns. So, cause I don't pay to serve impressions. I only pay to serve clicks. So if I just have a really low bid, knowing no one's going to click on it, at least people are still seeing the cover. And if they do click and buy, well, then it's a really low cost for me. But it's a different marketing strategy. There's different things that you want to do.
Yeah, I should look into that. We'll have because they are so proprietary about their algorithm and secretive. Yes. It is very frustrating to try and track. And so I will get I'll have an ad that does nothing for, months. And then suddenly I get a bill for $100. And it's like, what happened with this one? It suddenly was being clicked on like crazy. And that should be great. And then I go to look at the sales and I'm like, oh, we got, $100 expense and we sold 6 books out of that title. What happened there? And so I'm constantly trying to change those. This is the kinds of things that the authors don't know. And I'm like, no, I really am working hard for you.
But like the paid stuff is so crazy. Like I've also recently started experimenting with paid ads on Facebook, and like Facebook they'll tell you in the contract, they will actually like overbid. So if your bid is 50 cents, they say, oh, we might actually bid up to 75 cents a click. And you can't tell them not to do it. So you're always going to overspend on Facebook. You have to monitor these things daily.
Well, and what I found is the Facebook ones don't translate into sales. And I think it makes sense. People are saying to themselves, I am going on to Amazon, I'm going to purchase. And so they're far more likely to go, and while I'm here, here's a book. Like, they're in that buying mood. But Facebook, we've used it more successfully to get out the word about things like, the recent issues we had on Facebook. We made a video saying, hey, this kind of got this horrific anti-LGBTQIA response, and that kind of awareness campaign thing worked. But the actual ads don't translate into sales, which is frustrating for authors. But
the last time I ran Facebook too, like I said, the bid thing got me, but I actually use it as like a cheap version of PickFu, if you know that. So I had like 5. I have a book right now that's just we're getting into like it's such shop talk here, but
I know we're getting this isn't writing process, so it's okay.
If I'm not writing, I may be doing this. This is how I procrastinate. But I have a book where right now it just exists as a Kindle Vella. So I don't have like an official cover for it. I designed 5 alternative covers. I ran it through a Facebook ad. And then based off of how many clicks I was getting, I could understand which cover concept was resonating with people. So it was a good way for me to spend like $20. That's okay for me to spend. I wouldn't spend any more.
That's the trick. How can I spend this small amount of money and get the maximum amount of clicks? And
it is hard.
I have seen people have success running essentially Twitter polls. They're not Twitter polls with images because you can't do images on a poll, but they'll just go out and say to folks, which of these 2 do you think I should use? And then they do A/B testing essentially. The next day you do, which of these 2 should I use? And you get a lot of feedback on your covers with that kind of, people do that with their author biopics too. And I'm like, this really isn't about choosing the picture. This is about, getting my attention. And it worked. Picture B is the better picture, and so that kind of A/B testing, I need to do more of that. But we generally get one cover. We hire a pro, we get a good cover, we're really pleased with it, and then I'm like, oh, but we could have gotten some interaction from folks by asking them which of the 2 to use. So maybe that's something for me to try in the future.
Or even just early in the process, like what cover concept do you think would work better?
I should do that. There is one that I am really struggling with. We've got a fantastic novel, and the sequel is going to be coming out from Jason Brick, but it's a very hard pitch to capture in the cover? And I should just put that out there to folks and say, what would it be a good cover that would get your attention for this, and see if I can get some feedback on that.
Right. And it gets them invested in the process of the book, you know? So.
Yeah. So what is a hobby that has been helping you escape from your writing this last week?
Oh man, like writing is my hobby. I mentioned I had a day job, so like there's a lot of the stuff, but I like to do low-key outdoor activities. So I like to go hiking. I actually went camping over the 4th of July last weekend. I picked up archery during COVID, so I'll do that sometimes too.
Yeah. So archery, what how into like multiple bows and or
one bow.
Is it a compound bow? What is it like hunting kind of archery or target or?
Oh no, I have a recurve. So it's just a single or multiple pieces of wood. I pull back. I don't have any of like the doodads that you might see a competitive shooter doing. And I don't have a really strong bow weight. It's really just an excuse. It's like my version of golf, if that makes sense. Like my dad will just like grab his clubs and go swing and talk to people. I'll grab my bow and arrows and I go to the range. It's outdoor at one of the county parks. So then you just go with a friend and you just take turns shooting and you're, chatting while you go. So
that's great. I was really struck. I was learning about Zen, and there are Zen monks who study they focus on one thing, not because of the thing, but because it is a challenge and it's just about perfection. And archery is one of the things that, bonsai, which is one of the things that I have come to love, is, you can be a Zen monk who just works on bonsai for the rest of your life. But archery is totally one of those things. It's just about repetition and developing that perfection over time,
Yes, a lot of it is it will come down to muscle memory. So then you have to make sure that you're teaching your body to do the right thing.
Right. Not learning an arrow forever.
Right.
That's great. Well, so the next question I have for you sounds a little weird, but since the purpose of the show is to help our readers get to know authors, I want to ask you about if you were a D&D character. So if you were yourself a character in D&D, what would be your race and class?
So personally, I'd probably make myself a wizard. I do a lot of reading, so the idea of knowledge-based spellcasting just is, attractive to me. And because I like Lord of the Rings, I'll probably be an elf wizard.
An elfin wizard. Excellent.
Yeah.
And so, okay, now you've been attacked. We're going to put this to the test. It's just 3 level 1 goblins. You're walking through the woods, 3 level 1 goblins. What do you do?
Do I have a level above? Because I would love to cast Fireball.
Absolutely. Oh no, you're many levels above these 3 goblins.
All right, great. Yeah, I'll turn off a quick Fireball spell. I love getting involved into fights. That's my favorite part about playing D&D. Is I just want to go out there.
Fireball, Mage Hand is fun. Excellent. So yes, cast a fireball, all 3. I mean, you probably could take out 3 with a fireball, depending on area of effect. So
of course, like that's like my precision practice. Can I get all 3 of them with the one blast?
Yes. I in D&D, do you have to worry about starting forest fires? I'm not sure that's
Depends on the DM.
Yeah, that's true. You've got this excellent, huge, enormous fireball. You immolate the 3 goblins, and you've started a terrible forest fire.
Right. I mean, like I have accidentally caused fires before in a D&D campaign, so I know it can happen.
But I mean, if you've got the right spells, you can, the combat is over. I'm now going to put out the fire that I just
right. Yeah, exactly. So
excellent. So we're going to go to our ad break, but when we come back, I'll ask you about what you've been daydreaming about lately. Today's show is brought to you by Nancy Ballard's Under Carico's Moons series. The planet Carico is short on technology and long on wide open spaces. When Seth Riley returns home to Underrim, it isn't the peaceful village he remembers. Trouble is in the wind, and the new girl in town is at the heart of it. The 2 of them get in the way of Jerdix, a racketeer with a torture device outlawed throughout the Interstellar Coalition. Unable to cope with what he's suffered, Seth flees to a lonely camp where he becomes obsessed with taming a horse as damaged as he is. She follows, determined to help him. But immersing herself in his troubles and in the challenges of rugged terrain and solitude just helps her deny her own ordeal. Isolation is not a cure, and Jerdix is still out there. Can they stand up to this threat and find the help they both need to heal? The series continues in deep canyons and tricky ground as Seth and Lee discover something that will change the fate of their whole planet. Karen Eisenbray, author of the Rage Brigade duology and the Wizard Girl trilogy, says, "This thrilling sci-fi western rides the open range of another world with complex characters caught in a web of conspiracy." And Miko Azul, author of the Demons of Morelia series, says, "Distant Trails is a roller coaster ride of pain and despair, love and redemption. Ballard's characters embody both frailty and resilience as they redefine their lives from tragedy to hope." Get your copies of the whole Under Carico's Moons series today. Thank you, Doug. Gwen, what is something you've been daydreaming about lately?
A birthday trip. So this year is a bit of a milestone. I'll be 35. And so my mom is insisting. She's like, we're going somewhere.
And any particular place planned yet?
No. We know we have the dates picked out. We don't have a destination yet, but I'm just stalking flights, I guess, to see what will end up being a cheap flight to someplace cool. It'll probably be domestic. I've never done the Saguaro National Park, so that might be a fun thing to hike. But last time I was like Google stalking, I saw $300 round trip tickets to Dublin, which might also be nice. They're no longer at that price point, but if that comes back.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
That would be, I am a huge fan of international travel. Like, if you can get out, it's so great, to be able to, broaden your world, and it will, be wonderful for your writing. So yeah, if you can do the Dublin one, if you can find the deal, that would be really cool. Dublin is a really cool city.
I've spent exactly 18 hours in London because it was a layover.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I've done in that part of the world. So it would be great if we managed to do it.
Where were you off to that you spent time in London?
So Greece. Yeah. So my mom and I travel together frequently, and we actually like having a long layover on our way home, so then we could explore other things. So we did London that way. We actually did Taiwan that way too.
Oh, where were you off to on the Taiwan trip?
Thailand.
I am going this next spring. I have never been.
Oh, nice.
It was excited. So what was your experience like in Thailand?
It was amazing. So we went in the fall, so it was a little cooler, but still like hot. A lot of the temples were just stunning to look at, honestly. Bangkok was so crowded, very hot. Like, that's one of the places where you don't walk because it's just too hot, too humid. You're taking a taxi everywhere. And my roommate from grad school actually lives out in Bangkok, and so we hung out with her and her family and just did a lot of restaurants and saw the palace, which was also
I think that's on we're doing one of those very regimented tours, but the palace we will certainly get to see, in the temples, and I'm very excited. And then we'll eat a lot,
of course,
part of it too.
And a lot of what's amazing is actually just like the street food. Like, all of the vendors just kind of specialize. Like, pad thai over there is just like a really niche street food, so you go to like the one cart and that's all they make, but it's phenomenal. Enjoy. That's
something that I will be keeping an eye out for, because often it is the folks where you're going, oh, this isn't the the 5-star restaurant, it's the street food that is the amazing kind of cultural experience.
Yes.
I had some food in Greece, one of the islands, that was some of the most amazing food I've ever had in this tiny hole in the wall restaurant. Like, it's always not the big place that everybody goes. It's, can you find that place where the people who live there know this is the place? Exactly.
So every time we go to Greece, we do the same thing. It's a little kiosks, it's the tavernas, and
that's my go-to with cabbies. I always ask the cabbies, okay, where do you eat around here? And they'll tell you where's the good food. The cabbies know.
Yes. I also find, because I've done them a few times in different cities, food tours to be really good, because they're not taking you to those fancy places, but they're showing you local delicacies, and your tour guide is going to have at least 5 other places to recommend for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this one that we're going on, my dad's putting it together, but it's more focused on history and a lot of it is seeing, we're going to go to Cambodia. We're going to get to do Angkor Wat, which I'm very excited about. Yeah. Like that's one of my bucket list places. But I'm working on the 3rd novel in this series. And I just decided, oh, well, I'm going to be there. That's the setting. So I'm going to be taking notes like crazy because I want to catch the flavor of the place, the culture, the, street names, that, kind of that accuracy, but also it's a paranormal story. So it's, where are the dragons hiding in Angkor Wat kind of a place, kind of story. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with that.
Oh, kudos. That sounds amazing, actually.
Yeah. Well, and, for you, for this big trip, like, does that get into your writing intentionally or kind of, it's, oh yeah, I've been there. I could, use that as a place, or do you set that aside and say, no, I'm on vacation?
So I am constantly taking note of things in my head. So it'll be everything from like, I will write prose in my head, like while I'm walking down the street. I'm like, oh, the rain is hitting me. Here's how I would describe it in a story. So when I go on vacation, I'm definitely taking stock of this is cool, that is cool. I take a lot of photos. Sometimes I find that places I've been are inspired in like culture. If I'm doing a fantasy story, naming conventions sometimes, but I won't necessarily have someplace specifically from travels. I do have several stories set in Chicago, though, because this is the city that I live in. I'm familiar with it the most.
Chicago is a great city. I love Chicago. There's so much richness in Chicago to plumb too. I mean,
and that's what I love about it. Like you turn around and you have a modernist building, and you have an Art Deco, and then you have a neoclassicism. It's just such a mush of everything, and there's so many cultures here. Polish
neighborhood, and it's like, it's got this very rich, unique history, and then next thing you know, you're in this Latino neighborhood next door, and it's so that is it. Chicago is a cool place in that way, and I shouldn't say next door. Chicago mixes really well. Like it's not cordoned off,
Yeah. And that's what I think is really nice about it. Like even I live out in the suburbs, but within the suburbs, it's so easy for me to access. Like I could walk to them, Indian, Thai, Greek, Moroccan, a variety of different types of Latin cuisine, a restaurant that has won awards from Mexico for its authentic like meals. And I'm just like, wait, Thai places, sushi. There's a Cuban place. I can't walk to that one, but it's a 5-minute drive. Like they aren't, like you said, sequestered at all. You could pick and choose whatever you want, whenever you want.
Yeah. It's my time. Every time I go to Chicago, I'm like, I did not get enough time. Like there is, there's so much to see and try and, and I end up just wandering because it's a great walking city downtown too.
Yes.
Really
wide sidewalks, easy to get to places, and the grid system makes it really hard to get lost once you understand it.
Yeah, once you're like, okay, the lake is there, I know.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So what is something that you want listeners to know about your career, where you're at right now? What's an announcement that's going on in your writing career?
I had started actually hoping that I would be known for my contemporary romances. They're queer romances. Specifically, I have one that's out. That's an aro ace romance. So that was important to me. That's my orientation. But I have found that what people actually enjoy more from me is my short stories. So I am sort of making that career pivot into a committed short story author. So at this point, I've got 2.5 anthologies out. I say that because one of them is Kindle Vella only right now, but it'll be there eventually.
Right.
But that's just been like a thing for me that I'm still like as an author kind of working out, and what people I think should be aware of is that some people know me for the romance, some people know me from the short stories. It's the same person. It's just me.
Yeah. So what are the anthologies? What are the names of those? We should get those into folks' hands.
I mean, well, Written with Pride was the one that I was most recently in. So there's that one.
Well aware of
Um,
that one. Excellent.
so, yeah, and then the one that came out before that is actually called Fae Deals and Other Tales. So that one came out just before Christmas, I would say. So fantasy anthology, all short stories, at this point. And then I have actually an anthology that I edited called Denizens of the Deep, which is all about it's a mixed genre story, or mixed genre anthology, sorry. So we have mystery and contemporary and fantasy stories in there about creatures that live deep in the sea.
Oh, cool. I was just working on a chapter. I've got a sirens, gorgons, mermaids in my novel, and was working on a passage. And it was funny, as I was falling asleep last night, I was reflecting on the chapter that I'd written and creeping myself out. And I was like, because there is this beauty and horror when you get into the depths that is really fun to kind of play with as a writer. So yeah,
there's a lot of stuff down there. Yeah. And Lake Michigan, which is kind of what had sort of inspired Denizens of the Deep. Everyone in it is a Chicago-based author. But Lake Michigan has its own tides. It has its own shipyard graveyard. It has its own version of the Bermuda Triangle. There's some stuff happening 10 miles from me.
There was also and I don't know if this has already happened. There was this worry that there were these particular invasive carp, I believe from China or something, that were going to invade Lake Michigan and wreak havoc on the fish that live there. And I was like, there's a metaphor for a wonderful horror story. The invasive species in Lake Michigan. But yeah, I think Chinese carp, I think, is what they're called.
Oh, fascinating.
And
I have not heard about that.
But there was this worry that an invasive species, once they're deposited, how do you stop them? It's like rabbits in Australia, once they're there.
Really hard. I know, I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, actually right on the Detroit River, and the big thing there was zebra mussels. Once they kind of showed up, it was almost impossible to get rid of them.
Yeah, here in Oregon, we had this weird phenomena where the beaver trade for beaver pelts when beaver hats were fashionable in France, they nearly wiped out the beavers in Oregon. And somebody had the bright idea of bringing nutria from Peru to Oregon, and these nutria would be the replacement. And nutria are, if you've never seen a picture of them, they are RUSs from they are these monstrous giant rats. And they brought them up, and then when the bottom fell out of the beaver pelt trade in Europe, they were just not cool anymore. The person went, oh, whatever, and let them loose. And they are this invasive species. They are incredibly damaging. They're just not evolved to live here. And it's not even that they're not evolved. The trees here are not evolved to survive them, and they destroy a watershed. And so the state has done all kinds of things where they've said, if you kill one and send us the tail or whatever, we'll send you $60. They're actively trying to get people to wipe out these USs. They're really gross.
I had no idea. Because like I said, we had zebra mussels down in Detroit. The other thing was elephant weed. It would kill all the cattails. And then the cattails were very important in a whole ecosystem for a lot of the bird wildlife. And
how do you deal with that? I don't even know, because I know that efforts have been done where they'll try and import another species to prey upon that species, and then that becomes the new problem. There's no simple solution to, we're going to eliminate this predatory new, especially a plant species.
For a plant, you really just have to pull it up, and you have to pull it up before it seeds. But that's constant vigilance.
And I think that's where, or you give up, and go, I hope this new environment adjusts to and finds some new balance with this. And I think that's, unfortunately, sometimes the path of least resistance, oh, well, I guess we've just wrecked this ecosystem, the end. And if everybody's not in agreement, that's the other thing, is if, one state says, we're going to address this in a real full-throated way, and the state next door says, we're just going to let it go, the plant doesn't care.
No, it really doesn't. And there's so much especially in the Midwest, I feel like there's people are willing to drive. So you see a lot of people crossing state lines for any reason. Like in Chicago, it's not uncommon for people to commute from Wisconsin or Indiana.
Yeah.
So
I've got friends who live in Wisconsin and work in Chicago. Like
right?
that,
It's not that uncommon.
Yeah, and it's a drive. Like it's a long commute, but it's a very doable. I mean, it's their life. So
some people will take the Amtrak, actually.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and you see that in on the East Coast too, folks who are living in Connecticut and coming down to New York and living in Maryland and going into DC. And so if you say we're going to have a state response to this problem, the people are less invested if they only live half their lives there, and then the other half their lives they're traveling somewhere else. And how do you stop stuff moving when you're encouraging people to move? So
yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's an argument for federal responses. Like we really need a federal response to.
I would argue that I would like some things to be a priority than like invasive species.
Yeah.
But I definitely
true.
There are some things where we need a stronger federal government.
Yes.
So
we every week we do a weekly poll, and I'll post these on the various social media, and we've had some like dim sum or pho, owls or crows, avocado. How do people feel about that? So what would be your question for our weekly poll for this next week?
So this is inspired by my camping trip last weekend. What is your preferred method of marshmallows for s'mores? Like nicely golden brown, or do you just stick it in the fire and make it crispy?
This is a raging debate in my household. My fiance is very much of the other camp. I won't betray where we stand on those, but I watch her making a s'more and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're destroying it. You're doing it wrong. And then she's like, you're barely doing it.
Every time I have a campfire or roasting marshmallows, we have this debate because there's always someone on the other side of the camp. I'm just like,
I can't watch it. I'm like, what are you doing? It's a crime against s'mores. Yes. Right? So that's we'll see where people fall, but I have a feeling that one will be
hotly contested, right?
So what is in your to read pile right now?
So I really want to read Novik's Uprooted. Recently read all of her School Romance books, and so that is next up on my docket.
I have just picked up, or I just finished the first of Hugh Howey's. I just finished Wool, which is the first of his Silo series, because there's now a TV show of Silo, and I'm like, I'm hearing this is good. I should check it out, and it's really good. So Wool is the first one, and then let's see, I just started today the Shift, which is the second, and it's very well written and disturbing. It's people trying to wade out the apocalypse in a silo underground, and you're
okay.
But very well done. And then I was just reading, this is not a to read, but this is a recommendation for everybody. It just came up on my Twitter today. No, it came up on Threads. See, we're relevant. Somebody was recommending Cloud Cuckoo Land.
I have not heard of that one.
It is, because I've been reading Silo, it reminded me of Cloud Cuckoo Land, which has a little bit of Cloud Cuckoo Land is a brilliant book. It's 5 stories, I believe, overlapping, and you keep jumping between them over the course of history. It's very much a reader's book. Like it is a book about the value that a story can have in your life, and you watch how this story is preserved over time. And it's fantastic. So Cloud Cuckoo Land, I know it's praised to death. Everybody who's read it is talking about it, but rightfully so. It is
all right. No, that's fair. I have not heard of that one. Yeah, but I've heard of Wool.
The title doesn't sell it. Like I was like, Cloud Cuckoo Land, what the heck?
Right.
And then when you read it, you will go, oh yeah, that was the right title.
So it's more of like a dystopian versus like that title to me screams like literary fiction.
It is literary, but what it does that's so wonderful is it's through these different periods of history. And so there is one that's the future.
Okay.
So it's got this, in the distant future, how is this story being preserved? And in the present, how is this story affecting people? And in I believe it's the fall of Constantinople. How is this?
Oh wow. Okay, so that's a
and,
huge range.
yeah, and then ancient Greece. So it's all through, and you keep jumping back and forth, and it's marvelous. So the preservation of not even a document of a story. How is this? And the story keeps changing over time. And then how does the story change these people when they hear this myth? So, and a myth he made up. Like, that's the thing. He's created this alternative world where there is a myth, and it's so well done that I found myself going, is there a real version of this myth? No, it's made up, but it's like imagining that somebody created one of those, almost like an Aesop's fable kind of story. How would that have changed people over time if that was then part of culture? So Cuckoo, highly recommend.
Okay. That does sound like a very interesting concept.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy that one a lot, especially as somebody who is working in short fiction, like seeing the way short fiction, then it's like short fiction as an text, and then a novel around how is that impact? It's really cool.
All right, I'll check it out.
So where can listeners find you when you're not writing your books, when you're interacting online? Where would readers find you?
So I spend, unlike most writers, I would say, most of my time on Tumblr, actually. And I actually will release like short fiction for free on my Tumblr blog on a pretty regular basis. So that's the main spot to find me. I'm also on Instagram. I am not on Threads. I will probably not go to Threads. And then I am also on TikTok. So I do a lot of videos there. I'm trying to get onto Blue Sky because while I have a Twitter account, I don't use it much anymore.
Yep. So. Yep. Okay. Well, we will put links to all of those in the show notes as well. So folks should check those out. So before we get to our send off, there's some folks I need to thank. Thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro, I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3 Ds. Thanks to Halizna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band and you'd like your song used on the show, I would love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song, so email me about that. Thanks to Doug, the producer, as always, for making the show sound good and for taking the blame when it doesn't. And I cannot forget to mention, Writers Not Writing is a production of Not a Pipe Publishing. So please go to notapipepublishing.com, check out the amazing books written by authors like Gwen, who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate and review it wherever you found it. Check out Gwen's story and Written with Pride, or her solo anthology, Fae Deals and Other Tales. Tell a friend about those as well. Leave a review. Even that single click on that 5th star makes a huge difference to authors. So if you've got a couple of minutes, make Gwen's day. I'm too old to tell anybody smash that like button, but if you like this show, gently tap that like button. We would appreciate that as well. And that brings us to our send-off. So Gwen and I have 3 things we want to tell you listeners to remember this next week. Gwen, you go first.
There is a hotkey on Windows that will bring up an emoji screen and it will save your life.
Oh my gosh, I did not know this. Wait. Now we gotta stop.
Your eyes got so big.
Is this only on Apple? Is this on
to my understanding, it's only on Windows. So Windows OS. So it is control and the window button.
Control and the window button. Which is the window button? Is that one of the F keys?
No, the one that looks like the window logo.
That's not on my keyboard, but oh, yep, no, it is. I want to try this right now.
Oh, sorry, I told you the wrong thing. It's the window key and the period.
Window and the period. Oh my gosh.
Right? So it brings up emojis, it brings up GIFs, it brings up like regular symbols, like the copyright thing if you need that, instead of going through like words process.
We have just saved people so much time. Okay, so yes, you don't have to go to insert special character anymore. Just go window period, and then how great. Yes, okay, well, mine is far less practical. I just want to remind people that a novel without spaces wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. And in the same way, your life needs to have spaces. So take spaces. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, we're still proud of you.